One of the themes that is very apparent in the healing of the 10 lepers that we just heard proclaimed is the theme of gratitude. This sense of when the Lord bestows a gift, gratitude or thanksgiving should take place. And this is also present in the first reading in the healing of Naaman, right? So Jesus heals 10 lepers, and being a leper at that time was awful because you're dealing with both a physical thing that's painful and awful, like a horrible physical illness, but you become also an outcast of society. Like if you had leprosy, you had to leave society and feel rejected by society because you could not come near to people. You had to even yell, unclean, unclean, when you pass near others so they could, get away from you because you're contagious, and because there's also this sense of kind of being accursed if you had leprosy, right? So there's this healing of physical stuff, but also healing of like, I can go back to society. I can go back to my family, to my friends, and not feel like I'm just left out in the darkness, not accepted, not belonging. It's a pretty big deal that these 10 lepers are being healed, right? So Jesus meets them, and he just tells them, he doesn't say like, be healed. He says, go show yourselves to the priest. Now, what does he say this? Back then, if one had leprosy, and one thought that one was healed from leprosy, one had to go to the priest to be kind of checked off that you really are healed. Or if you had like a skin issue, the Jewish priest would know if it was leprosy or not. So they were the ones that determined whether you had leprosy or not. So he just sends him to the priest, kind of in this sense of like, they'll be able to accept that you don't have leprosy anymore, and you'll be healed, right? So as they're walking to the priest, they become healed. They realize they're healed. And I wonder what happened at that moment, right? Maybe they all became really joyful, and the 9 that don't come back just maybe say thank you to God, like maybe right then and there. Hopefully they did, but they just continue going to the priest. This one leper, right? The Samaritan, he probably just, and he actually, the gospel says that he returned glorifying God in a loud voice. So he's glorifying God, and hopefully the others were doing the same. I don't know. We don't know. But he's not only glorifying and thanking God with his voice, he wants to take action. He wants to be thankful not only with his words, but with his actions. So he returns, and when he meets Jesus, he falls at the feet of Jesus and thanks him. He prostrates himself before him. So he's being grateful with his words, but also with his deeds. And the other 9, they were not grateful with their deeds, and who knows if they were grateful with their words. We see a similar thing going on, right, with Naaman when he was healed in the first reading, right? He's healed of leprosy too, and he goes to the prophet Elisha, and he's like, I want to thank you. Let me give you all these things. I want to give you gifts because I'm so grateful that I've been healed. Elisha says, no, I'm not going to accept your gifts. But he's wanting to be grateful with his actions as well. And after Elisha doesn't accept the gifts, he says, well, give me some of your soil here so I can take it back home and build an altar there so I can offer sacrifice to the one true God. So I won't worship any other God. So he's being grateful with his words, saying, Elisha, thank you. He wants to be grateful towards him with his actions. Elisha doesn't accept that. But then he says, I will only worship the one true God. So he's going to go back home and he's going to change. He's going to be grateful with his actions towards the one who healed him, towards the one true God, the God of Israel. So reflection time for ourselves. I'd like to ask you a question and for you to ponder on this. What is the greatest gift that you have been given by God? Just answer in your mind. It's a good. What is the greatest gift that you have been given by God, and that perhaps He continues to give you on a regular basis? So I don't know what you're thinking. Perhaps you're thinking, the greatest gift the Lord has given me is my life, and He continues to give me that gift daily. A pretty good gift. So that's not far off the mark. Maybe you're thinking, actually, for me, the greatest gift I've been given is the gift of my children, or my spouse, or a particular friend, and He continues to give me this friend, right? So these are great gifts. These are really good gifts. But the greatest gift that He has given you is the gift of the Eucharist. The greatest gift God has given you and continues to give you is the gift of the Eucharist. It's greater than the gift of your life. Why? Because the Eucharist is the body and blood, soul and divinity of Jesus. It's God Himself. God is greater than our lives, and God comes and humbles Himself on the altar every time we come to Mass to give Himself to us. The gift for receiving the Eucharist is the gift of God Himself, a great mystery, literally Him under the appearances of humble bread and humble wine. Is there a greater gift than receiving God Himself? No, there is not. There is not a greater gift. And not only does He come here so we can receive Him, why does He do this, by the way? Because He loves you and wants to be intimate with you. He wants to be close with you. He doesn't want to feel distant from you. So He stays in this very, very approachable appearance because He wants intimacy with you. He wants to be in you because He loves you, because He cherishes you, because He wants intimacy with you. That's why He does this. And it's the greatest gift we receive, and that we have received and we will continue to receive every time we come to Mass. And not only that, but He also stays in the tabernacle. We have a chapel here, out here. I don't know if everyone knows, there's a chapel out here. When you exit here, you take a right, there's a little chapel here. We have the tabernacle there with Jesus present there. And He just stays there in His Eucharistic presence so He can spend time with us because He thirsts for your presence and for our relationship with you. And He's just there. The chapel's open pretty much all the time, just waiting to spend time with you. This is the greatest gift that we have been given and that we continue to be given every time we come to Mass and every time we just take the opportunity of visiting the Lord in the chapel or here in the church when it's open. So perhaps we could ponder or ask ourselves, when's the last time I thanked Jesus for the greatest gift He's ever given me, the gift of the Eucharist? Are we grateful for the Eucharist? And are we grateful for the Eucharist both with our words? Do we thank Him verbally? Jesus, thank you. Thank you for coming to me in such humble appearances. Thank you for allowing me to receive you, to receive your strength, to be united with you. Do we thank Him with our words? And then too, like we saw in the Gospel in the first reading, do we thank Him with our actions? Do we thank Him with our actions? Let me suggest to you 3 things. There's so many things we can do, and let me tell you, we can all grow in gratitude of the Eucharist. Myself included, as a priest, I still am not grateful enough for the gift of the Eucharist. So all of us can grow. And there's 3 suggestions I'm going to give you today. There's plenty more, but these are some suggestions we could try to implement in our lives to make sure that we're being grateful with our words, but also with our actions. 3 things. The first thing is making a serious commitment of never missing Sunday Mass. Making a serious commitment of never missing Sunday Mass. When we ponder on this gift, there's really no reason for us to ever miss Sunday Mass. I mean, there could be some legitimate reasons, like if you're sick, right? If you're taking somebody who's sick, you're taking somebody who's sick, right? If you get flat tires on the way to Mass and you can't make it, it's not your fault. Like, that is not a sin, it's not an offense to the Lord. But if we can come and we choose not to come, it's a grave offense. It is the greatest gift we have, right? So, the first thing we could do to show our Lord our gratitude for the Eucharist is to make a serious commitment to never miss a Sunday Mass. And there's the grave reason, like the ones I mentioned, like you can't actually go, okay? The second thing we could do is to visit the Lord in the tabernacle. Like I mentioned, we have a chapel here, and it's open all the time. Do we ever try to visit Him there and pray a little bit, even if it's just 2 minutes or 5 minutes? Maybe sometimes you come here to the office to do something in the office, and you just come and go to the office, do whatever you need to do, and then you leave. Maybe you were here at a fiesta, and you never stopped in the chapel just to pray a little bit. right? And Jesus is there just waiting for you to visit him because he wants to spend time with you because he loves you and wants to cherish you and give you gifts because he loves you, right? Do we make it a point to try to make it there? And if we're really busy, can we at least make it once a month? Once a month, I just want to show up there for 5 minutes. Or if I have more time, can I go, maybe once a week for 5 minutes? Or if we really cannot go, let's say we just we really are so busy with legitimate things, and we just can't go. Do we at least every time we drive past the church, do we make the sign of the cross, recognizing, Jesus, I know you're there present, waiting for me to visit you, and I really can't. I wish I could, but I can't. So I make the sign of the cross, recognizing, Jesus, you're there, and I so wish I could visit you. Right? The second thing we could do to show with our actions that we're grateful for Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. And the third and last thing I can suggest to you is getting into the habit of doing spiritual communions. Spiritual communions. Let me explain this a little bit. So maybe you got to hear this term, spiritual communion, during the pandemic, or maybe you've always known this because you just knew it. But spiritual communions are these prayers you can say. It's like a prayer that expresses a desire to receive Jesus, to receive the Eucharist, but then because you actually can't, you just ask him to come spiritually into your heart. So during the pandemic, when we were in having Mass, right, oftentimes you were maybe watching the Mass via online, and a prayer would pop up there that you could pray out loud, spiritual communion. And there's so many versions of what this could say, but it'll say something like, Jesus, I believe you're present in the Eucharist, but since I cannot receive you at this moment sacramentally, I ask you to come at least spiritually into my heart. I ask you to stay there so I can love you and be united with you, right? It's just, there's different versions of the prayer, but that's the gist of it, saying, Jesus, I wish I could receive you. So if you legitimately can come and visit Jesus in the chapel, or if you can, but you still want to express your gratitude for the Eucharist, you can try to pray spiritual communions every day or a few times a week, or multiple times a day if you like, just saying, Jesus, I wish I could receive you again. Can't wait till Sunday. I wish I could receive you, but since I can't right now, I ask you to come at least spiritually into my heart. Another way to show gratitude for the Eucharist, and you can just, if you want the specific prayer, just Google spiritual communion prayer, and you'll get tons of versions, and just pick the one you like. You can print it, put it in your wallet, put it in your mirror, put it in the car, whatever you want to say it, and you can get into the habit of saying it, being grateful for the greatest gift that we have received, the gift of the Eucharist.